Hi, I'm Dr. Ebony Stone, and this is the Black Woman in the Corner Office.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Black Woman in the Corner Office. I am your host, Dr. Ebony Stone. And today, let me tell you, today we have one of the most interesting topics and guests with us. I am joined today by Dr. Linda Taylor. And when I tell you, when we get into this, it is going to be, what do I want to say? It is going to be quite intriguing. Okay. We're going to talk about some things that all of us deal with. And we pretend that it doesn't happen in the workplace, that it doesn't affect our employment. And it absolutely does. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Linda Taylor. Hey, Linda, how are you?
Hey, Dr. Stone, it is a pleasure to be here. I am so looking forward to talking about this hot topic today.
Girl, me and you both. So listen, let me tell you guys a little bit about Linda. Linda is the CEO and president of an organization called the Divorce Think Tank. And so, toward the end of the episode, we're going to get into what that really means. But she's a divorce strategist, which I had never heard before. And it was so intriguing to me. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, we're going to talk about how Linda got into that work. So, Linda, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the beginning of your career journey?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I started my journey about 15 years ago, and I started as a volunteer mediator for several organizations and several circuit courts in the state of Maryland. And I became so passionate about it because one, I came from a broken home where my
Mhm.
parents was separated and went through that custody issue. And so it was just something that naturally interested me to be an advocate for kids because kids don't have a voice. And so that's how I became a conflict resolution and an ADR coach and relationship coach.
I love that. What drove you, well, you told us what drove you to
Absolutely.
volunteer, but how do you do that? Do you just say like, "Hey, I'm gonna go mediate," or was there something else in your past that drove you kind of to that career-wise? Was
Well,
there something
first,
else you were already doing?
well, no, absolutely. It was totally coincidence how I became a mediator. It was an attorney. I was part of an organization. I'm a certified realtor in the state of Maryland, and I created a conflict resolution course in the state of Maryland. And an attorney said to me one day, "You'll be a great mediator," and I didn't know what that was. And then I did my research, and I said, "Oh, that's kind of what I do already, but on a different scale." And so I decided to find organizations that offered mediation training. And here in the state of Maryland, there were several organizations. And I took the course, and part of taking the course, you had to volunteer. So
Hmm.
and I did it for 3 years. I volunteered for 3 years, and until I mastered the skills of how to be a great mediator, because the end result is impacting lives in such a positive way. I just felt compelled to do it.
That is absolutely amazing. So when you were on a different path, you were,
I was on a
because
totally different
real
path.
estate is completely different than what you are doing now, on a completely different path. What would you say if clearly that person that told you like, "Hey, I think you would be a great mediator," created a pivotal moment in your career? But as you think about your real estate career,
Mhm.
moving into mediation, and then what you're doing now, what would you say are maybe some pivotal moments, maybe some obstacles that you overcame, or some things where you just maybe had to change direction and you consider those to be pivotal in your career?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, the real estate, the real estate, I was doing conflict resolution for real estate. I was mediating seller and buyer disputes. So once I realized that there were other areas of law that, you know, required the same type of skills, I thought that, I had the transitional skills, so it made sense. And so once I created that conflict resolution course and realized the need, I was offering that course to several real estate boards in the state of Maryland. I realized that anyone could be a great mediator. In order to be a great mediator, you have to have great listening skills. You have to be very attentive to what's being said. You also have to be very uh, open and non-judgmental. You have to have some great open-ended questions in order to elicit the information that you need to help the parties find an amicable resolution. And I realized I had always had those skills, and so it's not difficult to be a great mediator, but it certainly requires a lot of work and a lot of training. I spent many years of training, uh, to perfect my skill to what it is today.
Yeah, you guys, let me tell you, I met Linda in October of last year. So not quite a year ago, maybe 9 months or so ago. And when I tell you she is a great communicator, she is a great listener, and she is very attentive to those around her. It is definitely a skill that she has mastered for sure. I can tell you that walking away from the event that Linda and I were attending together, I know that many people are still connected to her because of her ability to communicate. Linda, I want to ask you, ha- has that has that always been present in your life? And has it always been present personally and professionally? Or was that something that you had to learn? You said you spent years training in mediation, but was communication always a skill set that you possessed, like great communication?
Good question. Yeah, it. I didn't realize that I always had this innate skill and ability, but I was unfortunately placed in a position where I had to make an adult decision. At the age of 7, my parents were going through a separation, and I was asked to choose which parent that I wanted to reside with. A question no 7-year-old should ever have to answer. And in my limited capacity and in a very short period of time, I had to process, you know, uh, my core values of what was important to me. I didn't even know what core values was, but I
Right.
understood how to process my critical thinking really fast. Whenever I got sick, who was there? My mother. Whenever I needed food or when it was time to do homework, it was always the consistency of my mother. So I made that decision to stay with my mom. And I wanted to reassure my father that I still loved him. And so when I look back, the last memory I have of him is seeing the soles on the bottom of his shoes as he walked out the door.
Mm,
And so I realized through my unfortunate experience is to process, but also to analyze and to really listen to what's not only being said, but what's not being said. I can't explain that skill. Again, a lot of it is innate. Um, Howard University brought me to Maryland to be an audiologist, which is the studying of hearing disorders. But what I come to realize is that I have an exceptional hearing ability, and that's what makes a great mediator.
listen,
So through my
I
experience, I learned of the ability to just be an effective listener.
yes, your story is fascinating because what it does to me is it takes things that are seemingly unrelated, right? The study of audiology, uh, real estate, and then mediation in divorce situations and other situations, conflict resolution. It brings it all together in a way that probably I don't think anybody would have said, "Hey, I'm going to start off here, and then I'm going
Right,
to go here, and then I'm going
right,
to go there." But here's what I do know: I know that my guy has a way of using situations to propel our gift and to place us in a position where he wants us to be so that we can give to the world. So no, no 7-year-old should ever have to make that decision. But in
right.
making that decision, it prepared you for what he
Abs-
has for you right now. You
Absolutely.
know,
Absolutely. And that's why I'm such a great effective mediator. I settle over 90% of my cases, especially the custody cases, because I know what it feels like to be a 7-year-old who had to make a tough decision when you love both of your parents. And so because kids don't have a voice, I am their voice when I do custody and divorce mediation sessions.
That's absolutely amazing. So we talked about how you got here, right? We touched a little bit on your career. I want to I want to understand maybe the obstacles that you came up against making this happen, right? Because I'm sure it was not just a smooth transition from study to real estate to where you are now. So, what obstacles did you come up against? Just, I would say, professionally and personally, that
Mm-hmm.
you think would be great for our viewers and listeners to hear about, and how did you overcome those?
Oh, absolutely. I had many, many, many challenges. Um,
That
being
that
a
that chuckle that you just gave was
Yeah.
like, "Baby, let me tell you."
Oh, absolutely. No weapon formed. First of all, my faith. I'm going to start with my faith. No weapon formed against me could stop me. And there's a catch to what I just said, and I'll explain that at the end of our interview. But yeah, as a single parent, I became a single parent because of my experience of being abandoned by my father at the age of 7. I struggled in relationships. And so I would terminate relationships before they have a chance to terminate me. And so that's what happened with me and my son's father. I decided to terminate that relationship. And Howard University offered me a full graduate scholarship to relocate from New York to Maryland. And I accepted that scholarship and I packed up with my 4-year-old and then we moved on campus. And after
Okay.
that first year, my son became ill with chronic asthma. And so I ended up leaving that program, and his life just took a downward turn. But my faith was so strong that I was able to sustain providing for him by getting a job. And it was very difficult because my employer didn't understand what it was like being a single parent with a child that had a medical condition. And so I had to choose between my job and care for my son. And so what I did was I put my son in before care, private school, aftercare, and then aftercare, just so I can keep my job. And it was
Mm.
very difficult because I spent a lot of hours away from my son, but I had to provide for him because I needed the health insurance as well as the income. And so the challenges was finding employers who were understanding for women who have children and children with a bona fide medical condition, which led me to become an employment law mediator to advocate for women who have children so they can understand their rights, family leave rights.
I think it is beautiful the way you take your own personal challenges and you turn them into positives that others can use and you educate others. I think that is absolutely beautiful. So, what would you say? I'm sure somebody is listening, somebody is watching that is thinking to themselves, that's me. I am, as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with someone the other day. I am single now. I have this child by myself. They are a younger child. They have an illness. I have to have health insurance. And my employer just doesn't understand. What advice would you have for them navigating those waters right now?
Great question. If you are, whether you're a woman or male and you're a single parent with children, the first thing I'll suggest you do is read your employer's handbook. Because in that employer's handbook, if they have one, if they don't have one, that is problematic. Reach out to me, and I will be happy to help you navigate through that process. But if your employer has a handbook, the first thing you need to do is read the section on what are your rights regarding a reasonable accommodation or DC FMLA or FMLA, the Family Leave Act, because you have legal rights depending on how long you've been on a job. You have rights and your job has to accommodate your request providing that it's reasonable, and that's subjective, but certainly you have a right to care for your children and exercise your legal rights. A parent should never have to choose between feeding their kids and provide and taking care of their kids.
Never. You should never have to choose.
Never.
And you
Absolutely.
know, Linda, I love that point that you made to read the employee handbook. We often don't read the employee
Oh,
handbook.
that's so
We
critical.
often don't read handbooks or instruction manuals or rule books, but it is so important. I don't care what you are doing. First of all, when you're working, know that handbook inside and out because it has your rights in it. You need to understand that, right? I don't care
Yep.
what you're doing. If you understand the rules of engagement, it makes it so much easier because people don't try you when you understand the rules of engagement. They know that
Absolutely.
you know, right?
Absolutely. And what
So,
and what's equally important is in the event that your situation may elevate to a potential discrimination complaint, when I see it so often, a lot of cases that should have settled don't settle because the employee failed to follow the policies and procedure. In your employee's manual, it should tell you how to file a request for reasonable accommodation, how to request FMLA leave. Anytime you say to your employer, hey, I have a sick child, I need to take time off, the first thing your employer has to do is provide you with documentation, letting you know what rights you have in terms of leave. If they fail to do that, that is a probable cause finding. So, but you have to follow that protocol. You have to go look in your employee manual, follow the protocol. You have to file a request through your employer HR department. Hey, I need time off, and then they have to respond. It's called interactive process. They have to give you all the documentation regarding FMLA rights as well as reasonable accommodation request.
yes, absolutely. So, Linda, you have amassed clearly a huge amount of information just from your own experience,
Yeah.
right? I'm assuming that you've been through these processes as you talked about having a child that had an illness that needed care. Um, are, when you think back over those, I would say, experiences, right? I know it could not have been easy to have a child with a chronic illness. You're trying to manage it by yourself. You, like you said, before care, private school, aftercare, aftercare, right? Leaning
Care.
on your resources. I know that couldn't have been easy. What would you say was your biggest accomplishment? What are you most proud of during that experience?
Whew, well, there's a lot to be grateful for. I'm very grateful because I live in a state that have resources that didn't help me with the financial part, but when the financial industry collapsed. At that time, I was in real estate and I had a very successful mortgage company for 5 years. Very, very, very successful. And when the market collapsed, at that time, my son was in a private boarding school. I
Oh,
you know,
wow.
my son was in a military boarding school, Chatham, Hargrave Military in Chatham, Virginia, for 4 years. And I didn't have any income coming in, and my house at that time was in foreclosure because the market had crashed. And I was fortunate enough for my county to put me through a program called workforce development.
Mhm.
And they said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be a lawyer." They said, like, "Well, we're not going to pay for you to go to law school." And they said, "What's the next best thing?" I said, "Okay, a paralegal." And so I went through a paralegal program. It was a 2-year program, but I successfully completed it in 1 year because I knew I had to find a job to stop the sale of my home. And I was able to do that. In 1 year, I completed that program. And I was able to find a job the moment I graduated, and that stopped the sale of my home.
I
And
love that.
through that, I learned law. And from there, I ended up getting my law degree eventually in employment and labor and employment law from Tulane University, cum laude.
Nice, nice. So
And my son graduated from the boarding school with the Colin Powell Medal of Honor. So
I
all through all that trial and tribulation, we both were able to sustain and stay on course with our goals and we both were able to successfully complete what we started.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Listen, what I want to point out is life be life in sometimes, and it is not without challenge. I thank you for sharing that. I remember the bottom just dropping out of the real estate market. I too was in mortgages at the time. I had an infant. My son was born. I will never forget it as long as I live. I was on leave. I was on medical leave. I had a difficult pregnancy, and so I was on leave before I had my youngest son and after. And I was watching it happen on television with my fingers crossed, thinking, "Oh my goodness, I'm watching mortgage company after
Yeah,
mortgage company close. What is
yeah,
going to happen if I don't have a job?
right,
I need my health insurance." So I was in a very similar situation. I was also doing some real estate investing. I had all these mortgages. I was over leveraged. I say that because I think it's important that people know that you can recover from these situations, right? Linda just shared a very personal thing, right? She said, I lost my mortgage company. I lost my health insurance. I was in jeopardy of losing my home, but I kept pushing. I kept pushing and I had faith in God and I continued to push. And sometimes just some unbelievable things happen, like finishing your program in 1 year when it was a 2 year program. And it brings me to this. It brings me to strategy. So we talked about your ability to use communication, but clearly you are a strategist in
absolutely.
every sense of the word.
Yeah.
So when I met you, I remember thinking, what the heck is a divorce strategist? Like, what does that mean? And when
Right.
you explained it to me, I was so intrigued because I think people get into bad situations or there are marriages that aren't working and we don't strategize on how to leave. We just leave. We don't strategize on how to get out of toxic relationships. We just leave. And sometimes because we don't have a strategy, we leave carnage wreckage after we leave, right? So talk to me a little bit about being a divorce strategist. Tell our viewers and listeners what exactly that means, how it could benefit them. We hope they never, ever, ever have to experience a divorce or leaving a toxic situation. But if you do,
Absolutely.
Linda can help you. And Linda, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it so eloquently. You're right. Carnage is it's being quite gentle. Yeah, I'm a certified relationship and divorce strategist coach. And what that is I help individuals who are in toxic relationships or who are contemplating divorce navigate the process of creating an exit strategy. Just in whether it's a relationship or divorce, there are three aspects that you have to go through, and that's the emotional aspect, there's the financial aspect, and then there's the legal aspect. And not knowing how to navigate those three pillars is no excuse to the law. And it takes women. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I can tell you, it takes women 4 to 8 years to recover financially as well as emotionally post divorce. And
Mm.
part of the reason is that women are not great negotiators and they don't ask for what they want. Men never have a problem asking for what they want, just like in a job. They ask for their salaries. Women, we kind of dance around it. Same thing with divorce. When you're negotiating alimony, child support, pension, you have to be strategic. You have to be very strategic in finding out what do you need to survive post a divorce or post a relationship for unmarried couples that have children. And not
So
knowing that could be very detrimental.
yes. So I'm sorry, but I want to stop you for one moment. I just
Sure.
want to key in. Well, first, let me just say this. Linda talked about the emotional, financial,
And legal.
and legal aspects of divorce. I do want to put this out there. If you are in an unsafe situation, get out,
Yeah.
right? Look for help. We're not talking about those situations that are unsafe. We're talking about situations where you are physically safe, but
Right.
maybe you just need to leave the situation, right? Or
Right.
the couple has decided to divorce. So I want to make that clear. But when we talk about, you said it takes 4 to 8 years
To
for a
recover.
woman to recover financially and emotionally. We are taking that no matter where the workplace is. That 4 to 8 years, we're taking that into the workplace with us. Linda, what does that look like?
But it's very challenging and detrimental because when you're going through a something as personal as a divorce or demise of a relationship that is toxic, those problems and issues don't stay home when you go to work. They follow
Mhm.
you to work, and it taints your workplace environment. It causes dissension between you and your colleagues. The call out from your job impacts your security, your finances, and it's very detrimental. And understanding how it impacts every aspect of your life, personally and professionally, is going to be really crucial. And that's where the emotional intelligence come in for the self-awareness, critical thinking. That's really essential in assessing when it's time to leave, when it's time to make critical decisions, but also realigning with your core values will help you determine when it's time to leave and whether or not you should even hook up with someone.
Yes, realigning with your core values. It's interesting, and I do not know the actor's name. Uh, so I'm going to pose this question. I heard an actor. He's a prominent actor. I don't know his name. I apologize, but he and his wife have been together for, I think he said 22, 23 years.
Hmm.
And he said, the woman I fell in love with does not exist anymore because you're constantly evolving. And the man she fell in love with and married doesn't exist anymore. And so we're constantly evolving. My question to you is, in the work that you do, let's say I'm someone who I'm just not, I'm not sure yet, right? I know I'm feeling a different way.
Okay.
Are there people that come to you and you say, "Hey, I don't think you are ready for me. I would suggest you go to therapy," or I would suggest you guys realign because sometimes you're just growing. It's not toxic. It's just change.
That is so on point because a lot of marriages could have been saved, as well as a lot of relationships could have been saved. And coaching is not therapy. So let me just
Yes,
distinguish the two. Therapy
that's
is
where I'm going.
therapy diagnose some childhood trauma and suggest maybe you need some prescriptions. Coaching is unlike therapy. Coaching, we don't do any diagnosing or judging or any of that at all. What we do is you come to us and say, this is where I am and this is where I want to go, and what's in between, the gap in between, is the roadmap. It's
Yes,
how do I help you get there? But our job is to help you come to the realization of what it is you want. We don't make
yes,
decisions for you. And a lot of those relationships, it's normal for change to happen. Change is inevitable. And if
mhm,
you're not growing, you're stagnant. So it's
right.
not uncommon for a couple's core values to change, and realigning with those core values and being able to discuss them is the key to a successful relationship.
I love that. I love that. Yes. So not every relationship is toxic. And you know what, Linda? I would venture to say that not every divorce, and the reason I'm saying this is because I think in our world we use the word toxic a lot. But even relationships that end in divorce, they're not always toxic relationships. They just came to an end, you know?
Absolutely. I have quite a few of those cases. I have
Yeah.
quite a few of those cases, and primarily those are my targeted audience. I really don't do really hard adversarial, cases where they want to fight to the death and destroy themselves. I'm about amicable resolution, and
Yeah.
so a lot of my cases are, I help them with a mutual consent divorce or uncontested divorce, meaning the parties decided, hey, we're just growing apart, and we still
Yeah.
have kids, and how do we preserve an amicable relationship? I can help you do that,
I
and
love that.
without spending thousands of dollars and tearing, each other's, reputation apart and spending thousands of dollars unnecessarily on legal fees.
Yes, yes. I love that. I love that. So tell us before we get out of here, tell us where folks can find you and what's coming up next for you. I know you got some pretty cool things coming up that people might want to be a part of.
Oh, absolutely. I just came back from an amazing 2 day conference in Nashville, and I have some great news. I am co-authoring a book with Lisa Nichols,
Nice.
the one of the stars from the documentary The Secret, and it will be coming out this summer. And the book is called Unstoppable, and my journey is a testament to me being unstoppable. And you too can be unstoppable. You just have to realign with your core values, enhance your self awareness, which is the emotional intelligence piece, and the critical thinking. And that's what my coaching program does. It helps individuals get themselves to the point where they realize that they are too unstoppable. I can be reached at, divorcethinktank.com on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn at Dr. Linda R. Taylor, whether it's through Guided Mediation Exchange, which is my conflict resolution company, or through Divorce Think Tank, which is my relationship and divorce practice. But regardless of whatever it is you aspire to do, you can do it. And just know that where you are, sometimes we go through these trials and tribulations, and it seems very daunting, but they are actually stepping stones and part of your journey to something greater that you can imagine. So you got to just kind of go through it, trust the process, and never lose your faith.
Yes. Linda, you are such an inspiration. So
Thank,
is your story. I first of all, congratulations
thank you.
on the book with Lisa Nichols. She is amazing.
Yes.
But I would also just like to say your story is such an inspiration
Thank you.
to many of us. I love the thought that they are simply stepping stones. And so when you think about all that you've been through, you think
Mhm.
about where you are and you think about where you're going. My question to you, which I like to ask everybody, is if there was a movie done about your life, what would it be called? And do you know who would play you?
Yes, Viola Davis I would want her to play me because she is unstoppable. And
Unbelievably
she's
unstoppable.
amazing. So she would first play me, and then we would also kind of favor just a little tad bit. So definitely Viola Davis would play. I would say unstoppable, unshakable faith. A woman on a mission, and that would be my movie because being a woman and gone through, when I look back and realize all of my academic and professional accomplishments. Some folks says, how can one woman have completed so much? And my response is always the same. My faith and my heavenly Father already pre-designed my steps. All I did was follow them. Even when I was uncertain, I just never gave up. When folks couldn't see what God had for me, I never lost sight of my vision.
Mm, so beautiful. So beautiful. Well, Linda, listen, thank you so much for being here. You guys, you heard it. Unstoppable. A woman on the move. That is Dr. Linda Taylor. And I get to call her friend. So I am looking forward to the book coming out, and I will let you guys know when it comes out. Make sure you share this episode with someone who may be in need of her services. We'll make sure that we have all of the connections to Dr. Linda in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on what's coming next. And until next time, keep spreading that Black girl magic on everything you do. See you soon.
Thank you.